And this provides a good segue to the main event from Saturday night, because if you talk about fighters who didn't really have it tough um, with their opposition coming up, that's Jaron Boots Ennis. And it's not that Ennis wasn't facing good fighters, he just was so superior on the way up. And I think when you are that offensively superior, you might not work on your flaws as much. So this Saturday in the main event in Philadelphia that we talked about with Adam Abramowitz last week, Jaron Boots Ennis had a rematch that we thought really wasn't necessary versus Karen Chukhadzhian, and I'm happy to finally be nailing that last name there. Um, they'd fought in January of 2023, and Ennis won by a complete shutout, 120-108 on all three scorecards. And so that had been for the vacant IBF interim world title back then. Now Ennis is the full title holder, and Chukhadzhian had been named the mandatory challenger. And a lot of us wondered why. Like, what had he done? What had he proven to show that he deserved it? Chukhadzhian gave Ennis some trouble. He was landing some really good shots. Just happened to be that Ennis held up well. But it is a little concerning with the past couple fights, whether we are now seeing the limitations of what Ennis, once considered to be maybe the boogeyman, but if not the boogeyman, at least the top contender at 147 when Crawford and Spence were around, whether he could even compete. Not whether he could compete, but whether he could dominate the other title holders at 147. And then the question for Ennis is if he moves to 154, where there are bigger names, are those bigger names going to be able to take even better advantage of him, given his flaws?
Yeah, and I wonder if also the likes of Eddie Hearn and people around him have put a bit of pressure on Boots, because he's been described as by them as the greatest 147 fighter on the planet, and they don't see anybody beating him. And then, like that Philadelphia, I don't know what the arena's called, but they did well, didn't they, with tickets? And obviously they're making a lot of noise and they're marketing him in the right way. And sometimes that can go against a fighter. I don't know, it was a bit of a bang average performance, wasn't it? And maybe that was because of the circumstances and all the noise which was made around him.
Yeah, there are explanations that sound like excuses, but could also make sense. Boots Ennis was saying that, maybe he needs to move up to 154, and I wasn't certain if he was talking about for his body or whether it was just the quality of opposition there. It's wholly possible and plausible that Ennis was buying into the same storylines that we were, that Chukhadzhian really didn't deserve this fight, and maybe he just wasn't expecting the improvements that Chukhadzhian had made. Uh, so it's wholly possible that he could fight up and down to the level of opposition, but he will have a lot to work on. And the other question is whether his trainer, which is his father, will help out with that. There was a lot of words from his father, like, you need to put this guy away. But there wasn't really a lot of advice for how to do that. So I think that there will be a lot of work. If he changes trainers, that might set things back a little bit. But that wasn't the only big fight from the undercard